Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Tony Sirianni podcast. I'm thrilled to have our friend Adam Malamed, the CEO of Sanctuary Wealth. Thanks for being here, Adam. I appreciate it.
Tony, it is incredible to be here with you. So thank
That's
you for
great.
having
Well,
thank you for having.
happy you make me look like I have a lot of hair. That's why I
I
one of the things I
listen.
like having you.
What people don't see is the beforehand that we were trying to buff my head and like just
It
change
didn't
the
work.
lighting so people could actually see me and
Well,
not have a negative effect on you.
well, it'll be both of us. Trust me, we're in the same boat. Hey, this is kind of exciting because you've been there about a year. You've had quite a big year, just coming off of the big news about the True acquisition. Let's talk about that a little bit. And Bob Capolo. I don't know where to bury that, in it too, because that was a cool thing too.
Oh, there's so much to talk about. We should sit here for, a couple of hours and it's, there's a lot to talk about with Sanctuary. There's a lot to talk about with our industry.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot to talk about what happened in the last, let's say, 16 or 17 months at Sanctuary. And, obviously coming off of the acquisition of True Independence is something that, we couldn't all be more excited and, more excited and thrilling about that combination and that partnership. I think, Tony, it stems from even a year ago when we started to look, at Sanctuary. We looked at our strategy, we
Yeah.
looked at the industry, and we said to ourselves, where is Sanctuary want to be over the next 5 to 10 years? What's the vision? And really, we identified a couple of different themes or strategies where we wanted to lean into. And it was really all based on just understanding what is strategy in the broadly defined independent wealth management space. And your strategy has to be based on serving partner firms. I mean, we serve some of the most elite financial
You
advisors.
want to have options, right? I mean, the more options you give everybody, the better it is for everybody.
You want to have choice, you want to have options, and Sanctuary has become the destination of choice for elite and sophisticated advisors that are trying to leave the wirehouse and breaking away and shifting to independence. And historically, Sanctuaries operated under the shared ADV model. And when we met last year as a management team, we identified saying to ourselves that the shared ADV model is great, the own your own ADV model is great. Sanctuary, we don't care which model an advisor wants to choose. We want to be the destination of choice for all advisors, regardless of
Look,
which model they want.
that's the future of our industry, right? Everyone's going to sort of have multiple options, and in that space. And the fact that you have this great ecosystem, which maybe leads into the Bob Capolo thing too a little bit, is that you're putting together everything that you would need for both those type for any type of advisor who comes in.
Yeah, listen, I would say that, but that's what led us to the acquisition of True. This was something that we were going to build out in 2024, and we had the opportunity to meet the True team. And, immediately we saw the commonalities of, amazing, entrepreneurs, amazing executives that have built one of the highest quality platforms in the industry. And that's why, you put together Sanctuary and True, choice has become something that we're leading with: freedom, flexibility, control, choice. Bob Capola, I mean, you think about the evolution of our industry, Tony. Think about how technology has evolved over the past 30 years, especially in the independent wealth management space. And this is something that Sanctuary needed to make a significant investment in. We scoured the marketplace, and Tony comes to us. He was the former CTO of Envestnet, so the largest fintech company in the world has come to Sanctuary to lead our technology strategy, to lead, in what will be an industry-leading tech stack and strategy for the partner firms, the sophisticated partner firms that we wake up and serve every day.
And that's been part of your call to action when you started as CEO, if I recall. It's you're going to make these investments on behalf of the advisors, right? It's just a different way of looking at it than, say, some wirehouse firm does.
Listen, we're making investments into who we serve every single day, which are financial advisors, whether it's having a curated platform and solutions that helps advisors really in three specific areas. Number one would be help them grow their wallet share of their current client base. How can we help them grow households? And how can we help them be more efficient? So the infrastructure that we've built, the curated solutions that we've built at Sanctuary, I mean, it gives us a competitive advantage against, many that are in there in the marketplace. And there's a lot of quality people, there's a lot of quality places in the marketplace. We think we have a competitive advantage as it relates to those three.
And let's talk a little bit about wallet share, because that's something that's cool. So from your perspective, I know it's one of the things you identified as like, hey, we want to work on this. So what do you think when you talk to the advisors, what are you hearing back from them about wallet share and how they can get, their concerns around and how they can sort of, take advantage of what you put together?
Well, let's just, I think, Tony, start with the macro environment in mind. Let's just start, let's look at the opportunity set that exists for financial advisors that are in the industry today over the next 20, 30 years from now. I mean, statistics we all know, there's 55 trillion of investable assets in the United States. Over the next 10 years, it's going to grow to 85 trillion. You have that coupled with the great generational wealth transfer over the next 20 years, 22 trillion, 22 years, 72 trillion of assets is going to transfer from one generation to the next. You have the fact that women will control by 2033 2/3 of assets within the country. And as we start to curate solutions for our partner firms, how are we putting them in the best position to really become a financial life manager for this monstrous pool of assets?
Yeah, I mean, from an advisor's perspective, you want somebody thinking about those macro pieces for you, like because you got other things to worry about. You're worrying about, day to day, how am I dealing with my clients and how am I making it happen? The other thing we talked about was wirehouse warehouse. It was that came up in one of our Q&As. Let's talk a little bit about that because I like that perspective.
Yeah, I think there's two areas that Sanctuary very much so focuses on. So historically has been, I think the leading brand in the breakaway space. Wirehouse advisors shifting to independence. We've made significant investments this year to beef up, the executive team as it relates to, having their tentacles into all the different wirehouses that are out there. So continuing to have that as part of our strategy, but it's really the warehouses. It's, you think about the larger independent firms that are out there, the firms that have 5, 10,000, 15, 20,000 advisors. And, you look at the average production of advisors at those firms, whether it's, 40 to 80 million of assets under management. I mean, these firms are being built, being built the infrastructure based on the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
There are advisors that are at these wirehouses and are at these warehouses per se that fit the profile of a Sanctuary advisor. Designation status, high asset base, average partner firm at Sanctuary today has about 300 to 400 million in assets. I would argue most firms that are joining are billion-dollar firms these days. And there are firms that are at these warehouses. There were advisors and practices that are at these warehouses that have just outgrown these platforms. They've outgrown what has been built. They need more curated solutions. And we think that there's a significant opportunity at Sanctuary to provide them choice of how they can elevate their business.
And that, managing to the lowest common denominator, it affects everything. It's not just platform. It affects how you're treated in those places, throughout. They can't get out of their way to manage. They got rid of their managers who had experience. Now they got people who won't push back against this, big corporate. Everybody's in the same boat. It's just difficult. And it doesn't have to be.
I got to tell you, Tony, we serve today 120 partner firms with about 42 billion of assets. Our aspirations, if you ask anyone on our management team, you ask any one of our senior leaders, our aspirations in 5 years, 200, 250 partner firms. We don't want to become the warehouse.
Right.
We're a very successful organization, and we don't need to just grow to the masses and build something that's valued based on the lowest common denominator to be valuable to advisors.
Yeah, and also, based on what we talked about, you made this true acquisition. That's part of this, in my mind, what's going on in the industry. The smart firms are trying to, giving choice as best they can. But you need, it's a two-way street. It's not for everybody. You need a sophisticated advisor who's going to take advantage of what's the point? If you're not going to come and grow your business and realize something else we've talked about, equity versus enterprise value. You're not going to want to build your enterprise value. There's other places to go. Go to another warehouse, let them pay you X to just sit there.
Yeah, I mean, it's about, do you want to build value in your practice or do you want to build value for somebody else? And, I'm not saying that there's a one size fits all approach. to our industry. But the way that we see the world is the way that we curate our platform, the way that we provide an efficient platform for our advisors, curated solutions. It's helping them in ways that aren't, that really aren't common throughout the industry. It's helping them grow their practices more efficiently, which ultimately, Tony, it builds equity in these very valuable practices that we own. We look at the multiples that the industry is paying for, for a hybrid RIA, an RIA, an advisor. Those businesses are great businesses. So are you partnered with somebody that can help you grow, be efficient, and help you build what is really the outside of your wife and your children, your husband's, your most important and significant asset?
Yeah. And let's talk a little more about efficiency. I know that's I know you're actually doing that with the firm too. I mean, everybody's, got to be efficient, but advisors don't get it because again, just think stuck back in that big, bureaucratic hole where everything is run to the lowest common denominator. It's almost impossible to create the kind of efficiencies that you can create when you're on your own and you've got your own team. We even had a big producer on here, which I thought was interesting the other day, said he doesn't worry about his clients, he worries about his teammates first. Because he takes care of them, they're going to take care of the clients. So I know you worry about your advisors first. Same thing.
Listen, it starts, I would say that we have, and I don't want to go through all of our core pillars of our strategy, but the two top core pillars of our strategy is service excellence and ease of doing business.
Right.
And that's what we lead with. We create strategic initiatives that align to making sure that when we serve we serve the most elite and sophisticated advisors that are out there, that are certain service levels that have to be at the highest standards of the industry. They have to wake up every day. It's got to be easy to do business. And obviously we've created a lot of initiatives over the past 18 months. We're proud of what we accomplished, but we have a long way to go. And even like the hiring of Bob Capola, understanding that technology leads the way with efficiency. We now have somebody in the helm from a technology perspective that is going to help lead that way.
Yeah. And so that brings up sort of in my mind the big question, right? Because we're talking around it, we're hitting all these different pieces, but and it's a challenge, I think. I've done what you did on a smaller scale, but how do you scale up and grow and keep a culture? How do you create all these efficiencies without losing that spark? You talked a little bit about it. You don't want to be so big that you get out of it, but it's something you got to keep on your radar screen as you do even the true acquisition, right? And hiring about. You got to keep it in mind, right?
Listen, Tony, so many firms have done a poor job of managing growth and culture. And you have to remember there's a reason that an advisor or a partner firm joins a firm to begin with. Part of the connective tissue that our executive leadership team, our senior leadership team, outside of the amazing services that we provide, the connective tissue with the partner firms that we service every day are, sometimes it's the glue that creates this cultural environment. It's something we never want to lose. It actually ties into our acquisition strategy. Look at, the true acquisition. We speak to every partner firm, both at Sanctuary and True. And people have been asking me, why are you keeping True independent separate? Well, I would beg the question, why would you disrupt what made a company so incredible to begin with? The cultural aspects of, let's say, True independence, why would you disrupt that? Sure, maybe we'll sacrifice the margin because of the significant growth opportunity that's there. Never to sacrifice,
right.
Never to sacrifice culture.
But see, right there is just what I think what advisors get leery about because they come from situations in these big firms where that's the first thing they did. I'm going to buy Smith Barney, and then eventually there's no more Smith Barney or Merrill Lynch. I mean, no fans, I'm picking on those guys, but where's the thundering herd? Where people are super proud of that at one time, and you lose it, you really do lose something.
You lose significant aspects of what made those firms so incredible to begin with. And you even look at this mass exit from the wirehouses, which will continue. We're in a very early innings of the wirehouse migration to independence. I think it's even projected, I think it's 2024, this year or next year, where assets in the broadly defined independent space surpasses the wirehouse.
Oh, I think it's this year.
And I can argue that, the cultural connectivity at the wirehouses, it's gone.
Yeah, well, and you have to have, it's a weird thing because they're so, there's the firms that ended up making those acquisitions and doing things are so large, but to not have the confidence to be able to say, we're going to keep this, there's no reason why we shouldn't keep it. It's not a threat, to find a good culture. I mean, that's what you should be. Isn't that the goodwill you're buying when you buy a business? It's just to see if they lost that idea.
Yeah, I mean, they were, certain public, whether they're public or private, but these public companies were managing their businesses on a quarterly basis without a
Yeah.
long-term approach, and they were making acquisitions that were only about a synergistic approach to acquisitions instead of taking a strategic approach to acquisitions, which is the way that we are viewing the world.
Well, and then it's also, as you mentioned, with true independence, it's the same with advice. It's not worth anything if it doesn't grow. If you can't, if you can't grow it, what'd you buy it for?
What was the purpose of, and again, there are synergistic acquisitions that people will just buy something to be a financial engineer. And I think that when you talk to even the partner firms at Sanctuary, as we've explained to them, the thesis behind the true acquisition was to expand our total addressable market, leading with choice. That was a strategic decision to make.
Well, you've also done this before. So I think that there's, look, and I've run firms too, and it makes a difference if you know how to, not just from a negative standpoint. I've seen bad acquisitions, but you've done it in a responsible way, in a successful way in your past life, and there's not a lot of CEOs of independent firms that have done that. A lot of them are guys like me who started, now you're right, you got a tiger by the tail. It's a great thing sometimes, but starting to do the acquisitions and piecing together that stuff, it takes some experience, I think, to do it right.
Yeah, I would say that,
It's easy to
Tony,
screw up, I should say that.
it's a lot of hard work. I would say, as it relates to the acquisition strategy, maybe past performance here is indicative of future results, in the sense that, historically in the acquisitions that I've done, I've kept companies separate completely to protect culture and fuel growth. And as running a public company historically, sometimes people would question why, you can get more margins out of the business. And I would always push back. My partners and I would push back, saying, why would you sacrifice marginality and sacrifice the growth aspect of it? So,
Well, like that, in my mind, that's the answer, right? So, look, you've been at the helm now. You've made these acquisitions. Just short, because we're actually coming close to the end of our time. What's next? What's next what can you share with us that's next on the path for Sanctuary?
yeah, I would tell you, I would say, outside of just ensuring that we have the most efficient platform in the industry that is technology focused, supporting advisors and partner firms in the most efficient manner possible, I would say a couple of things. Number one is we're leaning into the breakaway space. I think I published an article with you last year. I talked about the breakaway train, has just left the station, and it's something I fundamentally believe in. I would tell you the future of Sanctuary is also supporting advisors that are already independent, that are at the warehouses, that maybe want a little bit more of a white glove service, that want access to more curated solutions that would help them grow their business faster. Regardless of the choice, their choice is up to them, whether they want the shared ADV or they want their own ADV model. And then it's M&A. It's strategic M&A like the true acquisition, but I need to bifurcate M&A, Tony, to say that, looking at the industry of RA aggregation, whether it's minority or majority investments, this is something that I've talked about and I've been involved with in the industry since probably 2015. Sanctuary already owns, I think it's 9 or 10, I think it's 10 exactly, minority interests in our partner firms.
Right.
And we're looking to lean into that over the next couple of years to make more significant minority and majority investments. There's big opportunity. I don't think there's ever been a better opportunity or a bigger opportunity for an independent wealth management firm to grow the business based on all the macro trends that are out there. And Sanctuary, again, we want to be the place that supports advisors, through this, this crazy growth cycle that we're facing.
All right, I'm leaving it at that, like Jerry Lewis. I like to end on a high note. I appreciate your time, Adam. We'll talk again. So congratulations on the true stuff, on Bob Capolo, and all the growth. That we really appreciate you being here.
Tony, I appreciate you, and thanks for having me.
You got it.